Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bas Leenders. I'm a data analytics consultant at G Company and the team lead of our data analytics squad. I'm joined here with by Paul Goddard and Sebastian Fabry from Looker, and we would very much like to tell you a little bit about our partnership with Looker and the way that Looker can help you as our customer to become more and more experienced with data in the cloud and do much more with BI than we can currently do. I will start by presenting my screen and do a very quick overview of what's happening today. During this less than an hour, we will give you a small introduction about data analytics in the cloud. Then Paul will give you an introduction to what the Looker data platform offers. Sebastian will show you in a short demo how this great tool works. And then we will have some time left for a Q&A. So please, if you have any questions, post them in the chat next to the video stream. During the meeting, we might even interrupt for urgent questions, but we would like to gather most of the questions to the end of the session. And after that, we can shortly discuss what next steps could be for you if you want to proceed and have a look at Looker. So data analytics is for a lot of companies a phased approach. For usual companies who start with data analytics start with just describing what does their company currently, in what state is their company currently, what is the current situation of the company, how is any data that is available, how is it possible to describe the current state, how can you then maybe derive from that future possibilities, how can you from extrapolation, from modeling of that data, predict something about the future. And in a third phase, you might look at how data can be used in real time to steer and manage your organization in a real-time way, completely data-driven. That's where usually the machine learning magic comes in. A lot of companies that we talk to aren't in that phase at all, and most companies are either in the more descriptive phase. They're trying to gather information, trying to get insights, and trying to make that information work for them, and they try to manipulate that data to get more insights, to deeper dive into that data, and to do diagnostics of their current situation. That's what most of our customers are currently working on, and the next step would be making real use of that data. But first, you have to, of course, gather that data and create those insights. And to do that, you can use the cloud. Google offers, of course, a very extensive set of tools in the cloud. A lot of our customers use the G Suite tools for workplace. A lot of customers have one or more infrastructural services that they have in the cloud, like application servers or networking solutions. And a lot of some of our customers have a complete application platform that they host in the cloud and that they manage in the cloud. And what we're discussing currently is the data platform solutions that Google offers in the cloud. Of course, Google has a big history of data and has a very big history of creating a very large and successful infrastructure in the cloud to provide for their own services, their consumer services like YouTube, like Gmail, like their ad networks, stuff like that, and of course the search engine. But also those tools, those platforms can be used by their customers. So Google offers this infrastructure, offers a network of connected server and storage solutions all out throughout the planet that can help any company, big or small, to build their data solution upon. So the infrastructural advantages that Google offers, the way that those resources for both compute and storage of data are connected, that is one of the big advantages that Google has even over the other cloud providers, but that you as a customer can reuse for your own data needs. On the other hand, Google has also a big history in creating software, in innovating data, and especially big data, analytics and tools and machine learning platforms, machine learning frameworks that Google has developed, open sourced, and is now offering as services in the cloud. So part of these services are the BigQuery data warehouse, one of the most advanced and most useful data warehouse solutions that are offered anywhere. One of the big pillars that our customers can now use the Looker BI platform or the data platform upon. Paul will explain in a bit how this works, but this is something where we really see the big synergy between Looker and the Google Cloud Platform. We've seen this for quite a while, and we were now working on the partnership with Looker, and in the meantime, Google has taken over Looker. So Looker is now becoming a product of Google. This, of course, is creating even more opportunities for integration, for really using the best of those both worlds. And that's something that we see as a really big opportunity to build with our customers more of their data solutions. So what we've seen in the past, that BigQuery becomes the central data storage and the analytics engine for your data needs, for any analytics that you might need. So all data that might be streaming or batched into the data warehouse can be then analyzed and explored and visualized with all kinds of data tools. Google itself offers Data Studio. Well, we've had other webinars already about the Data Studio offering. It's a very simple to use and very end-user friendly tool that can help you create dashboards upon structured data sources. But if you have more data, if you have more complex data modeling, if you have more advanced visualization needs, more analytics, complex analytics that you want to do, you need other tools. And Google always says, yes, you can use any BI tool like Qlik, Power BI, Tableau, the competitors actually of Looker. You can use those on BigQuery, but now Google has bought Looker just because it is really one of the top tier analytics platforms, I believe, and that's how we now can see the offering that that Paul will explain further. So Paul, if that was enough introduction for you, I think it's now good if you could do a little bit of introductory slides on the Looker data platform. I will stop presenting. You can take over from me.
That's great. Thank you very much, Baz. And yep, that was absolutely perfect. Let me just start sharing my screen here. Hopefully you will all be able to see this. So for everybody, my name is Paul Goddard. I am the Alliances and Channel Manager. So I work with valued partners like G Company. We keep our partners low, but we keep low in quantity, we keep high in quality. And we're privileged to be working with G Company today. Now, Baz has mentioned that we have merged with Google Cloud. So a little bit, some of this is a little bit out of date. For example, we've gone from having 900 plus employees being part of an organization of 115,000 employees, and our customer base has grown just a little bit from about 2,000 with Looker to all of Google's customer base across the globe. But up until this point, we were a young company. We were about 6 or 7 years old. We had offices across the US. We had offices in Dublin and in London, and we'd begun to expand our footprint in Europe. And Google had always worked closely with us. They had been a valuable partner for us from the beginning, and they saw us as a key fit for their go-to-market strategy as we go ahead and start to figure out how will people work with data in the future. And that's a key point, because whatever organizations are doing now is either not working for them because they're having issues, or they know what they're doing now will not be enough to carry them through the future. So I want to talk a little bit in general about what Looker is and what we do before passing off to my colleague Seb, who will take you through a physical demo. To explain what Looker is, it's important for us to go back and examine BI as it was and how it created the environment for Looker to come about. And to do that, we're going to go right the way back to the beginning, to what we call the first wave of business intelligence. And this is what we kind of call the single monolithic stack. So we're talking about installations for MicroStrategy, for Cognos, for something like TIBCO, Jaspersoft. We're talking about very large scale deployments that are pretty much, they did exactly what they said they were going to do. They would allow you to store data, they would allow you to amend data and delete it, but actually running business intelligence on it was quite difficult. You would have to cube the data, you would have to get a specialist to work on it, and very often it took quite long to get the answer to any particular question. And if you were to, for example, change the parameters of the question, then you had to start the whole process all over again. But it did offer a key strength, and that was the idea of data governance. It was very easy to say, this is the data because there's only one source of data and we control the input to it and the deletion of it. The downside was that it took a long time to get answers. And we would still have clients who are on these types of stacks, and sometimes, in some cases, they can wait up to 5 months to get a report. That's not an exaggeration. We had one major client who in some cases did have a 5-month turnaround on reports. That's just simply not possible or feasible in today's age. So that led to the second wave of business intelligence, which is what we call departmental self-service. So this came about in around the early 2000s. Organizations such as Tableau and Qlik, we said, look, there's a better way to do this. There has to be a way for departments to be able to pull their own reports and answer their own questions. And that is exactly what they said they would do. And in the beginning, everything was great. But what we've noticed is as organizations begin to increase, as the data burden increases, as the complexity of the organization increases, things begin to happen in the organization. One team has its own BI tool, another team has a different tool. One BI team has its definitions, and another one has different business logic. And once workbooks are created and they're out in the wild, there's no way to control them. And now people are using data that's out of date. And now it's impossible to reconcile what employee count is across the organization, because one department recognizes employee count as full-time employees and another one recognizes it as everybody, including contractors. And we call this data chaos. We've flipped it around. We've now given everybody access to the data, but we've removed the data governance. And we see a lot of organizations struggling with this in that, yeah, everybody's got access to the data, but no one can actually make a decision anymore because no one can agree on it. There's no veracity across the organization. There's no governance. Now, in the background, something else was happening, and that was the rise, and Baz alluded to this as well, the rise of the cloud infrastructure. The actual working theory for Looker predates a lot of this cloud architecture, but Lloyd Tabb, who actually developed Looker and started the whole company, realized that when he first conceived of the idea of Looker, the technology was not there to support it. But from around 6, 7, 8 years ago, that technology came into being. And that was things like BigQuery, like Snowflake, like Amazon and Azure. These cloud databases, which are highly performant, but also very cost effective. They provided the foundation and the environmental factor for Looker to come into being, for the rise of what we call the third wave in the data platform. And that cloud database is very, very important because Looker itself does not hold data. We will always query the database for a response. So we're only ever going to be as fast as the underlying cloud database. If we've got a nice fast cloud database, then we've got a nice fast response for Looker. To go into detail on what the Looker data platform is, I'm going to break it down into components. So what we can see along the bottom are your various data sources, all of the different tools that you would use as part of your organization. For Looker to work, we want that to be centralized. Like to be centralized on BigQuery or Redshift or Snowflake, whatever it is, but some sort of online database. Though we do an on-prem solution, but we do feel that cloud warehouses tend to be much quicker. Once you've centralized the data, we will use Looker to build a platform on top of that data lake. This platform will be built using something called LookML. That is the proprietary key difference between Looker and someone else. And LookML, for those of you without going too technical on it, is just basically SQL. We just treat it like code. So if you have people in your organization that know SQL, they will know LookML within a couple of hours. But using LookML will build a platform. And within the platform, we'll answer the very first need that organizations have, which is around the idea of data governance. We will set in this platform the definitions for the business. What is annual recurring revenue? What is employee count? What is customer satisfaction? And if you remember what I said, that every time you run a query on Looker, it hits the database. If we've got this platform here, then everybody has to use the same definition. It will now be impossible for different departments or organizations within a company to have a different definition of something. Everybody is now using the same metric. They're now pulling it in almost real time, which means there's no longer any out-of-date data there as well. The company can agree on the information they have. We can also set the security and permissions in this level, going right the way down into row and column level permissions, ensuring that only the right people see the right information. Your chief financial officer or equivalent should obviously have much more access than a junior sales associate on their first day. Looker itself is not an application. We're fully browser-based. And if you want to share a report, you simply copy the link and email it or instant message it to someone. You could have 10 people in a team and send them all a link, and they would all have a slightly different view if all of their permissions are different, ensuring that there should be no way for someone to see data they shouldn't unless they're physically sitting on the machine or device of someone else. We also offer a few other advantages. I'll not deep dive into some of these right now. I'll leave some of that to Seb, but I do want to focus on the API connectivity. That is something that's very important when we look at a platform. So if we look at a platform as the first step, the platform that gets you on the train, well, where does the journey go? The journey for many of you will start with business intelligence. You need a way to understand your data. You need a way to understand what's happening in your organization. So Looker will give you the tools to create best-in-class visualizations, dashboards, and allow you to visualize and conceptualize your data. What actually happens, though, is for a lot of BI products, that's the end of the journey. They don't go any further than that. They give you the information, but then what? Now, in Baz's first few slides, he talked about a sequence going from simply seeing what the data is to actually taking actions on it. The first step that we see in actually bridging that gap between having data and using data is the idea of a data experience, by putting data into the hands of a user when they need it, or possibly even before it. I want you to think about what currently happens at the moment. There's a need for data. Someone has to step outside of their workflow, go to a BI team to run a report, wait for that report to come back, and then recommence their workflow. That's simply not effective anymore. For the very beginning, if I refer back to those APIs, if you have one of your employees that uses Slack every day, then just put Looker inside Slack. Let them run their query within Slack. We use Salesforce internally, so we can put Looker inside of Salesforce. When we open up a customer record, we can see the customer's details right there, their usage patterns, and all of the information that might be required. It's by putting data into the hands of users when they need it. But we can go even further with that. We can start bringing in things like actions. Actions are built into the platform. Your developer will create those. An action is a predefined set of functions that will happen in the event of a certain threshold being hit or a manual action being taken by a user. We have a customer here, FuturePlay, and what they have done is created a bid bot. And what that does is, based on the alerts that are programmed into the platform, Looker will monitor the performance of their Google AdWords campaigns, for example. If it sees that an AdWords campaign is underperforming, then what it will do is simply switch off that AdWords campaign and redirect funding to another one. Compare that to what would have happened, where a marketing manager would have come in on a Monday morning, they would have run a report, which they would have gotten by about Tuesday or Wednesday, and then would have set the marketing campaign for the following week. Now Looker is taking care of all of that in the back end and taking advantage of BigQuery's AI functionality to just get continually smarter. They've seen a 3x return on their marketing investment and a 7x increase in game installations when they advertise. And where we really want to take customers to is the idea of a data product. you're all sitting on data that is valuable, not just to you, but to your suppliers, to your customers, and your entire ecosystem. We want to find a way to help you productize that and monetize that, not just for your betterment, but for the entire ecosystem you operate. A classic example of that would be one of the many retailers that we have. What they do is they allow their suppliers to log in and see what is selling in almost real time. And then what their suppliers can do is tailor the products that they're pushing towards the retailer. If a product isn't selling, they will simply they'll simply supply less of those to the retailer. That's good for the supplier because it means they're only selling their most profitable product. It's good for the retailer because it means they're not wasting shelf space on anything that isn't selling. And it is good for the customer because it means they get more of what they want when they want. And that's just one example of how we embed data or open it up. I'm sure in your own life, you can think of various different portals or applications that you use that allow you to link in and maybe see, okay, here's some of my data from a company that I interact with. Now you've got to think about how you might be able to do that, and how Looker could help you with G Company to monetize and productize your data. But I don't want to take up too much more of your time. What I want to do is actually show you this live. So I'm going to pass this across to my colleague, Seb, who's going to take you through a live demo of it.
Thank you, Paul. I'll go ahead and share my screen now as well. Perfect. So let's have a look at the actual tool now that Paul has been talking to us about. So this is an example of a Looker installation. Each of our customer actually receive and has a completely dedicated instance that they can log into. And very much like this example here, this demo, the first page that they might see once they log in is going to be a homepage that has a lot of content, right? Different reports and dashboards that have been created, have been curated for them. Now, it's important to know that to keep this very simple, everyone sort of logs into the same page. And then based on who you are and what sort of security access grants you have, you'll be able to see not only different reports, but also different areas of the tool as illustrated in the menu at the very top here. As an admin today, I can obviously see everyone, but if we're talking and considering our standard business users, they will probably be only accessing the first two areas of these menus, whereas if we split this in the middle, the develop and admin would be for the more technical users, the developers and administrators as per the names. And what each of these represents really is the fact that everyone's logging online, you have a simple access through your browser, you can browse through all the different reports that exist and that you have access to through different folders and different dashboards, etc. But you also have this exploration access, which I'll show you in a minute, that allows you to actually go and ask new questions, right? Get your own answers, be able to do this self-service in a correct and proper way, ensuring that you not only can you get your answers, but you also guarantee that these are the right way of calculating those answers. And then if you are technical, Paul talked to you about this modeling layer, and that will be sitting in this develop area, whereas the admin area will take care of all the things such as user management, connecting to the database, ensuring that the users have a proper experience inside of Looker. What sort of elements and activity are they looking at? What sort of schedules and alerts are they following, etc. Can I make sure that everything is running properly? There might be different reasons you're actually coming to Looker. It might be that you have this habit to come first thing in the morning and have a look at your reports. It might be that you've actually received an alert from in your email from one of the triggers and alerts that you are following for your data and for your daily business. Really, we're trying to make this as useful and as easy to access only when you really need to get to that data. And so that's why there's also this usage of data outside of Looker that Paul has already addressed, and I'll show you some examples as we go through this. Starting this journey in a point where a lot of users will actually start a journey is going to be a dashboard. Baz mentioned a few different tools in the beginning part of this webinar. Obviously, dashboards are very similar across all these tools, right? What they look like is going to be fairly standard. Series of visualization, side by side, giving you information about the sort of metrics that you already know you want to track, etc. What differentiates each tool is how do you actually get to this? Where is the data coming from, and how do you control it? In Looker's case, what is interesting sort of splits around two different topics. The first one is that direct connection to the database that we have, which allows us to essentially receive data directly from there, be it in terms of having live real-time or near real-time information, as well as having any sort of detail and granularity of the information possible. Each of these styles that we're looking at is actually has a SQL query sitting behind it for the technical users here. That's what allows us to go and get that data live. That's also what allows us to drill into as much detail as we want to make available to users. This could actually be querying and looking at a very large amount of data. And when Paul was talking about cloud databases, this is why that sort of relationship is fairly important. But we were able to go from a number that told me the number of total orders in a year down to the actual items that people have purchased in a single click, if that is relevant. So that's the first topic. That's the direct access to the data. The second topic is simply that we're web-based. And what that means is, anything that you click on can be a link to something else. And that also means that we can leverage all these sort of new technologies. It can be links to more detail. It can be links to different categories or different hierarchies. It can be links to other reports and dashboards inside of Looker. But it can also be links to essentially any URL. So if you have websites that you're using, if you have an intranet that you're using, if you have other online tools such as Salesforce or Desk or Marketo, etc., all of these things can be now interacting together, jumping from one place to the other, allowing users to sort of follow this workflow more easily. And I can go even further in terms of real integrations, what we call actions, that allows us to leverage webhooks, allows us to leverage these other APIs that other applications have to create seamless experiences. And from here, if I have worries about a certain order, I can go and create an order form in my ERP or my ERM system. I could go and send a message to a Hangout or to a Slack or whichever way your colleagues are talking with you. Or if it's really urgent, it could even be sending a text message to someone. All of these things are possible by integrating with other tools that are available. So we're really part of this modern ecosystem that allows you to leverage everything. And the goal is to make this dashboard more than just data. The goal is to make this dashboard, first of all, available and useful to you on an alert basis. So when it is actually useful for you to come and go and check something, we will let you know that it's time to go check it. And second, when you do find important information, you can act on it directly from here. So that's great for all the information that you already sort of know about. What should you do when you have a new question, when you sort of want to investigate, dig deeper, etc.? That's historically something that dashboards in general are really bad at because of the way they're built. And we don't want you to have to go and request more data, request more dashboards from somebody else. Instead, that's really where this explore area comes into play. And that can be accessed from the menu, sort from a blank slate, or you can grab any of these reports and bring them with you to this Explorer. So that's possible from any point within Looker. And you'll see here a lot more freedom in what you're able to look at and what you're able to construct and create. So if you did not want to see this by gender, but were rather interested in seeing this over time, you can change this report. You can pick whichever field you want to look at and go and request that information directly from the database and visualize it in a way that sort of makes sense for the data that you're consulting. And that's true not only for reports that you are sort of modifying and looking at, but it's also true for anything that you want to create from scratch. And here to sort of give a preview to the more technical member of the audience, all the elements that are available on the left side are coming from our modeling layer that we call LookML. And each of these has a single definition that is then shared with the rest of the company. And as users are selecting these items and adding them to their report, adding them to their essentially table, the canvas that you see at the bottom here, in the background, Looker is looking at those definitions and using them to assemble SQL queries. So this is how we're able to leverage those databases. This is how we're able to get that data in real time or near real time. For example, I selected created data and total sale price. You can actually find these in the query as a created data and total sale price. If I were to want to limit the data to maybe last 30 days or 60 days, wherever you wish, this will then update on the fly this query as well. And very simply, a business user can go and create through this interface the report that they want to look at, request the data from the database, and once the data, the query is sent to the database that does the processing of the information, returns the results to us, and then allows us to go and visualize it. So you have a very simple access to a lot of information, allowing you to combine all these elements in whichever way and filter on them and pivot them and add them however you want, however you need to get to your answers. And you can maintain the same interactivity in terms of being able to go into more detail. As you build this report, you then have a set, obviously, of different type of visualization that you can use, but also of different ways to actually leverage this report. So you can go and take this and save it as its own look, which is what we'd be calling a single report. You can also go and add this to a dashboard that already exists, or create your own dashboards, etc. Downloading still exists, obviously. Sharing, again, being web-based, everything is just a link. You can send that to your colleague, and when they open it, they will see this report. However, bear in mind that it will also apply their security settings, right? So if they're not allowed to see their data, this report will appear blank to them. If they're only allowed to see certain parts of this data, then they might have a slightly different shape here. So it's very important that you're able to share as widely, as broadly as you wish, but each person will only see the data they have access to. That first dashboard I was looking at, if I send this to people in the Netherlands and 2 people in Belgium, people opening this in Belgium might only see Belgian data, whereas other people in the Netherlands opening this very same report might only see data from the Netherlands. I want to also show you a little bit about this scheduling and this sending, because that goes back to this integration, that goes back to these workflows that we can enable and simplify and automate. You can see, perhaps surprisingly here, that email is not the only option. Yes, you can indeed receive a PDF of your dashboard every Monday morning, if that's how you like to run your business and that's how you like to kind of be ready for the week. But there's also a whole set of other destinations that exist and that can be added to. What comes to mind here is, for example, marketer. A user in marketing might be able to identify a segment of users that they want to target for a certain campaign. Well, let's make that super easy for them and allow them to take that list of people and directly add them to this campaign from here. And I can just go and send that information that will appear in the marketing tools right away. And I can go further. I can say, okay, in addition to that, I also want Looker to check every morning, are there new users? Are there new people in this segment? If there are, add them to that campaign automatically as well. If you're tracking the uptime of certain critical piece of equipment, if that goes down, then send a message to someone. The example that Paul was telling you earlier, I'm tracking the cost and return on investment of certain AdWords or certain keywords. And then if those pass certain threshold, automatically pause them or exclude them, etc. Tag them for review. So that can be done as a one-off. That can be done on a schedule. All of this is possible thanks to the modeling layer, thanks to the LookML. And that's indeed where all these different elements are defined. So as I said, Looker is connected to a database. Based on what's available within that database, you're able to create a model. So this is going to be a little bit more technical now, but I will try to walk you through it. There's a couple of key things to know, really. So first of all, let's go have a look at these things, right? For example, gross margin, how do I define that? How do I calculate that? Paul mentioned already that this modeling layer is using SQL. So what happens when we are creating a model is that Looker is actually going to allow you to select all the tables that you want to work with. And for these tables, we'll also automatically create a definition. So that's why you can see all these files on the left. These are actually text files that represent the tables that exist in your database, that represent the information that exists in the database. And we'll automatically create those for you so that everything, all the information that exists in the database also automatically exists in Looker and becomes available. But it's not sufficient. There are other things that need to be added. There are, certain business logic, certain way of calculating KPIs, certain definitions. How do you calculate? How do you identify an active user? How do you calculate revenue? What's the definition of gross margin, etc.? So these things will be defined in here by someone that knows SQL, by one of the developers, and make those available then to the rest of the users. The key piece I want to you to take out of this is this idea of centralizing definitions. So sale price, in this case, is a column that exists in my table, and we're reusing that to decide, okay, the developer knows that its business user need to calculate gross margin. Well, what's my definition of gross margin? Let's go and enter that in here. It's going to be my sale price minus the cost of the items. And essentially, this purple writing, what this is doing is referencing the dimensions that already exist. So you can reference fields, dimensions, and measures that already exist anywhere within the model. You have this single source of truth, single definition that you go and reuse. And when you create them, you can themselves be reused again. So gross margin can itself be reused to calculate my percentage, can be reused to calculate my total, my average, wherever it needs to be. These references are very important because that's what's going to give you the governance that Looker is able to offer. The key thing here is that not only do I have a single definition, but also if tomorrow I need to modify how I calculate my gross margin, I only have one place to modify, even in this case, one line to modify. And that's going to go and update all the other calculations that uses gross margin, and it's going to go and update my dashboards and my reports and my emails that I sent and my embedded dashboards and my API calls. Everything stays in sync with these new definitions. The other piece I'll show you just for now is, obviously, we know that you have multiple tables. We know that you have different ways of looking at data. And so that's what we're enabling with these explorers that I mentioned already. What are the entry points to the data sets? What are the different tables? What do they look like? How do they relate to each other? And how do you define them? A core team of technical people that know SQL are essentially curating this knowledge. And that's what allows you to then power, for example, these Explorer interfaces, giving people access to the data and allowing them to combine them. But it's not the only thing that it's capable of powering. It can also power the API that allows you to access data from wherever you want to be. It's going to also power all these links, power all these integration with the scheduling, and potentially be powering some third-party websites or third-party application that you guys are building. This is a quick example that I want to show you as the last thing of a third-party website where my e-commerce store is actually trying to share information with their suppliers, and I can log in as one of their suppliers. As I log in into this portal, in the background, the portal has a communication with Looker that allows to essentially tell Looker who the user is and therefore ensure that data is restricted and securely shared. And that can be information that is shared via API, allowing you to receive the information in whichever format you want to receive it, whether it's images or CSV file or JSON file, and then you can use that information however you need. Everything you see in purple is actually coming as text and then being displayed in this website. But if you want to go and leverage the Looker visualization themselves, you can also do that and embed them directly into your website very easily. And same concept apply. You can still drill in. You can ensure that all the information that is displayed here is actually secure and restricted to just the person that has logged into this portal. So if you look here, the brand is all Allegra K because that's the user I'm logged at. The thing that the reason I'm showing you this is so to illustrate very clearly that Looker, yes, allows you to do your internal BI needs, and it does that in a governed way, but also allows you to essentially make data available with whichever tool and in whichever place it needs to be available for you to get maximum usage and maximum benefit from this. I will stop the presentation for now, and we'll use the last few minutes here to answer any questions you guys might have posed. So thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Sebastian. That's a very clear view of what Looker can offer, I believe. We have one question in chat, and I have a few questions that popped into my mind and that were recently asked to me about Looker. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask them too. So I will now put my slides on screen again, just to show you where we're at. Thanks for the great demo. So one of the questions that are the two questions that are already coming in through the chat. One is from Niels. Thanks very much, Niels. The question is, can you go back to an early version of LookML? So how does the versioning work is maybe the general question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, because I actually did not mention it. Yes, all the code that you see, so all the LookML is actually version controlled through Git, which allows you to not only go back to a previous version if you need to, but also to track all changes and have multiple people work together in parallel on those changes. Everyone sort of works in their own branch, in their own sandbox, and when you're ready and you've done your test, you can then go and deploy them to the rest of the users.
Yeah, very great. I think that's one of the biggest advantages that Looker offers. The modeling that you do is really well maintained, reusable, but also versioned, and so very, very scalable. Another question from Glenn. Thanks, Glenn. From an end user perspective that is accustomed to visualize reports in Google Data Studio, is there a steep learning curve to start with Looker? And that's from a report builder perspective, I believe then.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be one key difference. The key difference with Looker is that the first step is always going to be that LookML, that modeling layer, that it requires a technical knowledge to build. But once that exists, the actual dashboarding part or report building part is very simple. You have a series of fields that you can select and group together different ways, build different reports. You have a series of different visualization you can select from, and then simply add this to a dashboard. And all the interface is very visual, so you can just simply, once the tile are on the dashboard, you can drag them around, resize them, add new ones, etc. So I would say no. Once the model is built, the learning curve is very gentle.
I have to agree with that. On the other hand, I have seen some new users of our customers trying to work out how it works. It is a lot more advanced that you need to know. But on the other hand, yes, it is working with metrics, with dimensions. It is creating pivot tables that business user usually can do. And what can be overwhelming, but is actually, of course, one of the biggest strengths is that you can really drill down into the data. And that's something that Data Studio just doesn't offer. So yes, it's a new playing field, but the way of working with it is very user-friendly. I have to admit that. So another question. A question that was asked to me before. As a business analyst, do I need to learn a new programming or database language to use Looker? Is that something that I should be aware of?
Again, I guess that is a fair question when you see all this text on the page there. But the thing to understand, I think Paul sort of addressed that point early very briefly, is that we're leveraging SQL. So we're leveraging a language that you already know and a language that a lot of people already know. And what we're doing is just adding a few parameters. We're adding reusability to it. So we're adding the version control to it. So it's, again, coming in with that SQL knowledge, LookML is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, great. And I think especially when you are in between a well, a data analyst using database language. I think for data, someone who knows SQL, I think LookML is a very small addition to that compared to when a business user would actually know with no SQL knowledge. They will probably not need to know any of the modeling language because they will be offered the explorers and they will just be clicking and exploring the data from the model that the developer offers. So yeah, Paul?
I'm sorry, if I could interrupt, if I could maybe share just 2 slides that would help address
Of course,
actually
please do.
those questions and how they were all connected and how customers are currently using Looker.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps. So if I could just ask to share the screen there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like that. Oh, bear with me, guys. These will be just 2 short slides. Won't have to endure too much more. So hopefully you can all see my screen. This is a company based in Germany called Tier Mobility. You can see that they're a relatively young company. They didn't exist prior to about 2 years ago. What we can see here is, and this goes to the point of how easy is this to adopt and what are the barriers to entry. They knew that they're in the e-scooter business, so they have to be able to track the usage of the scooters, their location. There's a tremendous amount of data that has to be looked at. They knew that they could never scale their BI team, which is this bar along the bottom, as quickly as they were going to scale the rest of their actual team. So what we've done here is, or what they have done is that every new employee that comes on board has to learn Looker. Now, what that means is the barrier to entry in learning this can't actually be that high because you can never be sure what every new employee's technical ability will be. And they've been very successful in ramping this up and in getting people to use this product and therefore keeping the number of BI team employees lower. And what this actually ensures for their BI team as well is that they're only involved in high quality work. They're not running the same report every Monday morning for someone else. They're doing very strategic work for the overall growth of the business. And to look at another reference case, it's a company called Get Your Guide. So this is, again, how does everybody in the organization use Looker? So what we can see here is once we implemented it and we went through the training, this is where we really took off at around this point here in the number of active users. And as the number of active users rose, the actual ad hoc requests, so these would be day-to-day requests or week-to-week requests somebody might have for the BI team, collapsed. The actual BI team stayed relatively stable in terms of their size, but look at the difference between the amount of ad hoc requests they had at the end of the process as compared to when it was at its peak. So those are the differences. People will always have to learn a new product, but once they've learned that new product and once you've put the training structure in place, it makes a huge difference to the overall organization. And it's worth pointing out that G Company, of course, would be more than capable of helping you with that cultural shift. I think I should have said before.
Yeah, it is in some cases it is a cultural shift of people trying to wrap their heads around the data that is available and to actually using it to actually exploring it themselves. And I think in those phases we can definitely help pull together. Absolutely, and Looker will definitely be a big help for as a product in those steps. Maybe another question for you, Paul. If you and this is maybe a bit of a nasty question. Sorry about that. How does Looker compare to other vendors? If you look at the cost mainly, how does it work for you?
So from looking at the platform, you'll see that there's a lot of flexibility in that to create something that's quite unique to each individual customer. Now, we thought about, could you just take like some off-the-shelf box and plug that in, and it actually didn't work. So what that means is when it comes time to work out what your solution will be, every customer gets a very unique solution. We do spend a lot of time either directly or working with the partner building something that's unique and bespoke to the customer. And the pricing will reflect that. So if you were to pick 10 different customers, it'd be hard to say, there'd be some similarities, you could maybe put them in buckets, but each of them would have a price point that's quite unique to them as well. So when it comes to building out a solution and pricing, it's all very unique, and we'd sit down with the customer and yourself, figure out what that might actually be.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I can tell from experience that we've seen now a couple of customers that are comparing different products, and as we say in the Netherlands, it's always comparing apples and pears. All the products are different. I hope that with your introduction, it became clear how Looker is different from the rest. So, and also how the solution really offers a different value to all of your customers. And what we've seen is that when we start exploring that value, it really becomes worth it quite quickly. So
our CEO has a statement. He said, "Whoever wins the BI war will not be a BI company."
Nice one. Yeah.
We consider ourselves to be a data platform organization, and that's a huge differentiator between, say, ourselves and some of the competitors that we have out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks. So if there are no more questions, then I think we would like to wrap up. I think I would like to thank everyone for the questions that came in, for your attention, for watching the webinar either live or in recording. Please let us know if you have any questions that you would like to discuss with us personally. What we usually see as a next step is that we definitely want to look at how we can work with you together with Looker to either build a proof of concept, to look at a personalized demo, to explore the needs and the and especially the criteria that you would use for a trial or a proof of concept. I think what we saw now is very interestingly that yes, Looker is a BI tool, but it offers not only the insights, it will offer you the next step to create data integrations and even take you a level higher to create data products with your data. I think that those insights are very worth it, especially if you want to take all these steps and create a scalable solution. If you want to be able to have real-time versions, modeling of your data, everything like that. That's I think what's most interesting learnings for us and you hopefully from this webinar. So with that, I would like to thank you, Paul and Sebastian, for your time, and hope to meet you at our customers again soon.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye. Stay healthy and safe.
Bye-bye.